The reason narcissists are so good at deceiving other people is because they're good at deceiving themselves. Their self-deception, it's this skill they have, and you have to give them credit, if you allow me to use that word, because they are really good at self-deception. And generally, this is a learned behavior where throughout their young childhood, adolescence, maybe things in their life were not so good. Maybe they had some kind of ongoing trauma. And they had to get used to detaching themselves from reality, focusing on things that maybe were not real to comfort them. And that detachment, that trying to pretend their reality was different from what it really was to soothe their pain in a way which transformed into this self-deceptive nature, became a predominant personality trait. And a lot of narcissists, they'll pride themselves because they'll think that their deceptive nature is their strength because it allows them to one-up people. And that may be very true in the short term, but in the long term, it's their biggest enemy. Because narcissists, they make big decisions. They make important decisions based on this very unstable, quicksand type foundation of lies, their own lies. So when things backfire, when things go wrong, or when they make big decisions and they did it for the wrong reasons, but they're pretending they were doing it for a good reason, they don't really have anything to stand on to recover from that. And what I mean by that is when things go south for the narcissist, they can't really heal from their mistakes. They can't really self-reflect, because if they were actually to look in and think, oh, why is their life such a mess? It's their own doing. So what they do is, they'll create havoc and chaos in other people's lives. They'll use and abuse the people that are closest to them. They might even push those people away and pretend they did it for some good justifiable reason. Whereas everything they did was just to get their supply needs met on a bunch of lies. Whereas if, let's say, they push somebody away and then that person goes on a healing journey, that person will heal, that person will grow, because what they had and the reason they were pushed away, for the person who was the object of that, there was truth to it. And the person would be able to heal from that, because they'll be able to actually see what happened and actually see the situation for what it is, and accept that maybe they were dealing with somebody who was abusive and they won't deal with that kind of person again. But the narcissist, on the other hand, when they make decisions that backfire, when they push people away, they can't ever soothe themselves with the situation. There's no learning for them. And what that means is they become their own worst enemy when they're trying to deal with their life dissatisfactions, their life instability. And instead of growing and healing and understanding the causality of things, some form of truth, narcissists, they don't have that option. And instead, they try to get more supply from other people to stabilize them. And that's why if you get engaged in this kind of toxic relationship with a narcissist, as soon as you're healing and feeling good about yourself, they come back because they need to self-soothe by putting you back down. They need to self-soothe by creating instability and turmoil in your life. Whereas you're perfectly fine, you're getting better day by day, the narcissist is getting worse day by day, unless they can reel somebody in who they consider to be good value, good supply, who they can use for their own personal gain. The long and the short of it is, time is always against the narcissist. But for the person who's been on the receiving end of any kind of toxic abuse, time is always in the favor of that person. And that's the narcissist's one of the worst things that they experience on an ongoing basis, is they see the people around them growing, being happy, accomplishing things, being proud of themselves. People around them are even proud of other people. Whereas narcissists are primarily driven off two sentiments, fear and anger. Fear and anger are the two primary emotions which drive them to do what they do. And of course, they're very envious of other people's successes. They're very envious of other people's accomplishments. They're very envious of other people's happiness, and they're very envious when they see other people growing, especially when someone manages to detach from a toxic relationship with them, and then they manage to bounce out of that. So while they may pride themselves in having this deceptive nature and one-upping other people as being their strength, as being their superpower, they're in a constant rat race because things are always going south as a result. They get short-term supply and long-term detriment, but then they need to find ways of reeling in new supply to keep their head above water because it's like they're drowning. And then they play all these mind games. You know, sometimes they have to pretend they've had revelations of sorts, like they've seen the wrong of their ways. They've noticed how they hurt people. You know, they pretend that they do care, and so on, because they need to bridge that gap from not having their needs met to having their needs met. And then the other core theme, of course, is time. For people who have a good head on their shoulders, for people who predominantly feel good, or at least they have the ability to feel good about themselves, about things generally, time is your friend because you can cooperate with the natural rhythm of things, make things happen. You create new connections, you create new opportunities. You don't get bogged down by pathological envy, competitiveness, anger, fear. Whereas narcissists, because they can't feel good about themselves, they always need to have a couple of fuel sources that are fueling them. And the way the fuel sources fuel them is by them reeling the people in and then constantly putting the people down until, of course, they've lost that fuel source and they need to find another one. And in the meantime, you're witnessing pure chaos in somebody who's not getting their basic needs met. But they have to come across as if they're functioning in society, as if they're a normal functioning human being. But the only thing is, they don't make any sense. There's no coherency, there's no consistency, there's no congruency. While they think their chronic self-deception is a strength, it is one of their biggest weaknesses, and it does play towards their downfall. And narcissists, unlike so many of us, they fear the future. They fear for what will be. Whereas many of us look ahead and just think there's more and more. Thanks for watching.